حسين جرح عطش وفراق، حسين قلبي لك مشتاق، حسين انت هوى العشاق، انت هوى العشاق، انت هوى العشاق، حسين انت هوى العشاق، انت هوى العشاق، انت هوى العشاق.
أقر بخدمتك نعمة وقلت كلمة واللي بقلبي على لساني، لو اني ضيعت روحي يا مذبوحي على شباك تلقاني، يشم بكربلة ترابك ترى ببابك لا تكتب عمر ثاني، صحت يا طيب الملقى يضيع كربلة يلقى، ترى المحروم من عنك يموت من القهر حقه، يموت من القهر حقه. نسيت اسمي وانا بذكراياك، نسيت عمري لو ان انساياك، نسيت كل شي واصيح اهواك، الفرق حزن واشواق وانت هوى العشاق، نسيت كل شي واصيح اهواك، الفرق حزن واشواق وانت هوى العشاق.
حسين جرح عطش وفراق، حسين قلبي لك مشتاق، حسين انت هوى العشاق، انت هوى العشاق، انت هوى العشاق، حسين انت هوى العشاق، انت هوى العشاق، انت هوى العشاق.
المجالس روحي تعشقها من فارقها، اضيع وداعت عيونها يا ابو اليمه، ترى المأتم هوى وينشاب بدون يموت مجنونه، ترى اليم من برك يربى علي صعبه يعيش سنين من دونه، فراق الخدمة يذبحنا، جرح جتال يجرحنا يا ابونا وخاف زعلناك، عليك الزهرة سامحنا، عليك الزهرة سامحنا، عزاك صحنا قسم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ومولاي يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله. ما خاب من تمسك بكم وأمن من لجأ إليكم، يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، قال الله في محكم كتابه الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. The position of the orphan within the religion of Islam is of the most important positions. When we look at history, we notice that many prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were orphaned at a very young age, highlighting that these prophets faced tests and trials in their lives. And today, there are millions of orphans around the world. There are more orphans in the world than a lot of people actually realize. And be prepared when I share some of the data that the numbers might shock you. While I'm going to suggest some of these numbers, I want you to actually not just look at the number, but keep in mind that each number represents a child. Each number represents a human being. A child growing up in the world without parents. A child who maybe has lost his father, or maybe lost his mother, or in some cases lost both. A child who may be without the comfort or a home or nourishment or food or water, and the list will continue. Remember that every child has a story. Every child has a dream. Every child deserves to fulfill this dream. No different to our own children. No different to a child of a friend. No different to a child of a family member. Let us share some of these statistics about orphans. Today, UNICEF estimates that there are over 153 million orphans around the world. And this number is rising every year. And of course, 153 million are the ones that they have counted. In some areas where they have not reached, these numbers would increase if they were to give the actual number. So this is just an estimate. And the continent with the largest number of children without at least one parent is Asia, home to 61 million orphans. But of course, this problem doesn't affect just the developing world, but also the developed world. Interestingly, some statistics that came out in 2018 sees that the USA has 500,000 children in foster care. Here in the UK, there are over 65,000 children in foster care. That's roughly 10%. Of course, these are children in foster care. Many of them are still waiting on waiting lists to enter into a home. And sometimes in the UK, the estimate is 3 years for a child to enter into foster care. And because Islam gives importance to orphans, we all need to work together to help these children in the world who are without families, who are without homes. Let's look at Iraq's orphan crisis. Iraq holds over 1.5 million orphans. This is, I feel, a very low number. Some numbers actually suggest that Iraq holds more than 2 to 3 million orphans. 1 in 5 Iraqi children work to support their families or themselves. And 80% of all Iraqi children here I'm saying, not just the orphan, 80% of all Iraqi children experience violence. So imagine the psychological effect as well as other challenges that these children will face. But what are the causes? How do we have such a large number where UNICEF says today in the world there is 153 million orphans? I remind you, my dear brothers and sisters, that do not look at this as a number. This is a child we're speaking about. The first cause, war. Conflict is generally the main cause of orphans. Let's look at the example of Iraq. If we were to start from the war in between Iraq and Iran, 8 years war, how many people died? How many orphans do we have? Or if we look at the latest war in Iraq, the war against terrorism, against ISIS. Here we're talking a war that started in 2014 that ended only last year. 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I do say it ended last year, but just last week there was also a terrorist bombing against some Iraqis in the shrine of Ibrahim, the son of Malik al-Ashtar, where some Iraqi soldiers, poor soldiers, standing there guarding this shrine, they were killed. When these men go out to defend the holy shrine, to defend the sanctity of these holy places, to defend their families, to defend their homes. Because if we go back to the fatwa of Grand Ayatollah Sayyid al-Sistani, may Allah prolong his life, the fatwa was not for Shias to go out and fight. The fatwa was for anyone who is capable of carrying arms, weapons, to go out and defend his home, defend his family, defend his dignity, defend his children. Now when these men go out and fight and get killed, we mention them as heroes. But who's looking after their families? Who's looking after the widows? Who's looking after their orphans, the children? So the main reason is war. Of course, I mention Iraq because I'm familiar with Iraq, but of course you have Afghanistan, Palestine, recently Yemen. UNICEF in 2014, before the war, listen to this statistic. In 2014, UNICEF estimated a total of 600,000 children under the age of 18 were orphaned. Before the war. Imagine how many children are orphaned in Yemen today. So this is the main cause. Then you have the second cause, which is disease, which is also another major cause. The Spanish flu we've heard about a lot. The Spanish flu killed 50 million people. Majority of them were adults. If we're talking about adults dying because of the disease, majority of them will probably have children, orphans. Even with the COVID, the majority of people that are dying are generally the older generation. The third cause is poverty. Of course, poverty is not having enough material possession or income to support yourself or your family. And then you end up with a broken family. And sometimes these add together. Imagine you get all three at the same time. Like Iraq at the moment, war, poverty, and what? And the disease. All three have come together. Imagine what would happen to this family. A woman, I remember when I went to Iraq in 2015, I went to visit some of these widows, some of these women who lived in the outskirts of Karbala. So imagine I was in the holy city of Karbala, just left the ziyarah of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, driving 3 to 5 kilometers from the shrine, so inside the city of Karbala. And we go to this area, and they say that most homes that are built here are illegal. And we're not talking about homes. I say the word homes or a house, but they were a couple of bricks. Roofs are leaking, rubbish everywhere. You wouldn't even put an animal there to live, let alone a human being. So we'd go visit some of these families. I call them families sadly, but it would be a woman, a widow, with sometimes 5, 6, 7 children. I remember this one woman, we went to visit her house. And she was a very strong woman. The first question I asked her was, how did your husband die? And she mentioned that he died in Jurf al-Sakhar, an area outside Karbala, later named Jurf al-Nasr, an area where a lot of these bombs, explosions would come from this route from Fallujah and Bar into South Iraq, Karbala, Najaf, Hilla. She said he died there while fighting ISIS, Daesh. I said, okay. I said, you've got a lot of children. She had 11 children. 11. I said, you've got a lot of children. She said, they're not all my children. I said, who are they? They said, she said, 5 of them, they are my kids. The other 6, they're the children of my sister. I said, okay, so where's your sister? She said, my sister, also her husband died fighting ISIS. But after he died, she couldn't take care of the 6 children. She got married again and she did not want her children. Imagine. She did not want her children. So I'm looking after them because I'm the aunt. And they have no one else. 11 children living in a I shouldn't even say 1 bedroom, 1 room apartment. If they had to use the toilet, the WC, they had to have to leave. There wasn't a toilet in there. 11 children, and when I left, I asked her, look at this, look at the strength and the patience of these women. I asked her, do you need anything? Obviously, we were there with a charity and they were going to support them. She said, no, alhamdulillah, we are fine. Alhamdulillah, we are fine. And today we have everything that we need. And the one time we may face a trial in our lives, we ask, why me? Why is Allah punishing me? And we start questioning our faith. Yet this woman, she had all war, poverty, another in the same house, in the same apartment. I shouldn't even call it a house. Wallahi, you wouldn't put an animal there. I asked her, there's a back room in there. Why haven't you used that room that you have, that you've made? She said, we found a snake in there, so we've locked it. So sometimes these problems, these factors come all together. The next factor is natural disaster, causes of orphans. And of course, many of us see this. We'll see, for example, earthquakes, or we'll see hurricanes or floods. And of course, sometimes you'll end up with children without their parents. And finally, abandonment. Many of you also witnessed this. A young mother, she's not prepared to have children, especially in societies that have no faith, no religion. What happens is the parents aren't ready to become parents. They get rid of their child. In fact, when I was searching the topic, I found there's this thing called baby box. In the UK, here in the UK, there's this thing called baby box. In 2018, the baby box scheme that lets parents leave children sees a record year. Approximately 50 children, we're talking infants, babies, 50 children are abandoned in the UK every year. And some of them die. They have this concept here. I don't know if it's legal, illegal, I didn't look into it much. Baby box, where if you don't want your baby, they've set up a box, you go and leave your baby in there without anyone knowing, and then you leave. So again, this gives a rise to what? To orphans, because they grow up without a parent. And then there are problems that the orphans encounter. The first problem, and this mostly is seen in developing countries, is inheritance. There's no laws in developing countries to safeguard children's rights. So what happens? When the child's father dies, the grandfather, the uncle, whoever's in charge comes, takes all the money, leaves the widow, and leaves the child without anything. Of course, this was also a problem during the Jahiliyyah time. During the Jahiliyyah time, what Quraysh did was, if a woman, if her husband died, what they would do is they would come, Quraysh, they would kick her out the house, take everything from her. They would tell her to take her children, and they take everything off her. Why? Because in the Jahiliyyah time, they said, women has no use. What is Jahiliyyah life? War, battles, fighting and eating, sleeping, fighting, war. That's their whole. Going to the market, sleeping, fighting. So they thought this woman, she can't go to the market, she can't trade, and she can't carry a weapon. She's no use. So what's the point of having her? Her child, same thing. He can't, he's an orphan, he can't carry a sword to fight, and he can't trade. They kicked them out. So this was present during the time of the Jahiliyyah, and it's also present in some countries today. Crime and poverty. The child ends up being poor, ends up being on the street, maybe joins a gang. Before you know it, he's in prison. Before you know it, he's into drugs. These are problems that orphans could encounter. The third problem, society and community doesn't help as well. Sadly, we'll look down upon someone, and again, not all. Well, the society looks down upon someone who doesn't have a father. You know, there's a quote. Sometimes when you're naughty, I remember this, and you're in the mosque running, the mosque caretaker or the mosque imam, or I shouldn't say imam because they don't usually do it, but you know, someone who's in charge, the one standing next to the door, he holds you by your ears and he says, Minu Abuk, who's your father? They look for your father. That's the first thing they ask. It's something that's common, that you go back to your father. Yet if you have an orphan who does not have a father, the community looks down upon him. If not looks down upon him, he himself will face psychological challenges. All these are real challenges because he doesn't have the love of a father. There's no father figure in his life. It may lead to trauma, setbacks. You know, seeing another child in his father's lap is very difficult for an orphan. Seeing a child on the day of Eid with his father, the daughter with her father wearing new clothes, the son wearing new clothes for the day of Eid, even coming for Muharram Majlis, the father holding his son's hand, looking after him, feeding him, whatever it may be. The young orphan will see this. It can affect him. And this love of a father cannot be replaced. Islam noticed this problem. Therefore, Islam gives special laws and jurisprudence when it comes to the orphan, yatim. There's special ahkam. Today, if you go into any risala al-amaliyya of any marji', there are special ahkam for the yatim, for the orphan. How the money is shared, how his wealth is shared, how khumus is distributed, how he is adopted, what's the adoption procedure, enjoining good and forbidding evil with an orphan, even the migration of an orphan. There are special laws when it comes to the orphan. And Islam wanted to give special importance before this problem leads to bigger problems. Because Islam is not just theoretical. Islam is not just practices. It's not just laws. It's not ahkam only. Islam is a way of life. Let's look at the Quran and orphans. Chapter 93, Surah Al-Duha, verse 6, puts the right of the orphan first. First, Allah speaks about the right of the orphan, then the right of the sa'il, then He says what? بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. So there are three, and of course we know that this verse was revealed about the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So as for the orphan, do not oppress him, the right of the orphan. And as for the someone asking, do not repel him, the right of someone asking. And as for the favor of your Lord, speak of it or report of it. The right of Allah and the ni'mah that Allah has given you. Scholars say there are a few reasons why Allah has put the rights of those that ask and the yatim before His own haqq. This is very important. And there are different reasons. First, they say that an orphan, a needy person, is muhtaj, yet Allah is ghani. And Allah is the Wahhab. Therefore, because Allah is the ghani, He does not need any haja. The muhtaj goes first. The second reason is haja is put forward before the independent bestower. Allah has delayed His own haqq, His own right, because He is the ghani. Allah, whether you speak of His ni'mah or you do not speak of His ni'mah, whether you thank Him or whether you do not thank Him, Allah still what? He still gives. Allah does not need you to say, Alhamdulillah. It's for your own good. Allah does not want you to say, Shukran lillah. It's for your own good. Allah does not want you to pray. It's for your own good. For example, today, when I say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, this salawat which I am, is what? Is a dua. I'm saying, oh Allah, send your salutations and your blessings upon Muhammad and the progeny of Muhammad. Is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam not already receiving the blessings? Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Allah is sending His salutations. It's for my own good. And finally, some scholars say that Allah wants action before talking. He wants you to look after the orphan, not repel the sa'il. Then He wants what? بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. The act of giving is done because of Allah's favor. Don't ever think that because you are giving someone charity, that's because you have done good. No. Number one, the money that you are giving to him is what? Is rizq from Allah. Number two, even your movement, if we go back, even this movement, your breath, the breath that you take, is all what? Blessing from Allah. You should thank Allah for allowing you to give charity. It's His blessings, not yours. Look at Surah Al-Insan. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. The Ahlulbayt give us the example, the prime example of giving. Imam Al-Hassan and Imam Al-Hussain are sick. They are feeling ill. To summarize the story, Rasulullah tells Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam to make a nidhr, a vow, that they should fast for 3 days. And they do. They fast for 3 days. Imam Ali Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, Al-Hassan alayhi salam, and Al-Hussain alayhi salam, they fast. As well as Fadhil. She also decides to fast with them. On the first day, there's a knock on the door. Ya Ahlulbayt al-Nubuwwah, give me from what Allah has given you. Who are you? I am a miskin. They take their iftar and they give him their iftar. And they break their fast with some water. On the second day, same thing. There's a knock on the door. Ya Ahlulbayt al-Nubuwwah, I am an orphan, a yatim. They give him from what they are about to break their fast with. On the third day, I am a captive, an asir. And they give out from what they are about to break their fast with. لا نريد منكم جزاء. There's a few points I want to look at. Number one, nowadays when people give, before they used to want their name on the plaque or wherever it is, now they want to get tagged. They want social media recognition that I have given, I have done good. Make sure you take a selfie with me. Make sure you follow me. Now we look for that recognition. Ahlulbayt did not want recognition. لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكر. إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله. We are giving for the sake of Allah. When you give, Don't give so there's a photo taken. Don't give so people can say Mustafa Masood gave. Give for the sake of Allah. Number two, when you give and you are giving for the sake of Allah, you don't need to ask, what are you going to do with this money, and go into depth. I am a yatim, give me. Imam Ali came out of the door, why do you need the money? Why do you need the food? What's going on? What's your name? What's your background? Who's your father? Who's your mother? You know, now when you want to get a donation for, what's your name? Who do you belong to? Which hizb? Which group do you belong to? Which marja' do you follow? Interestingly, the Ahlulbayt, when they gave to the miskin, to the yatim, the third, there's one of our scholars, he has a beautiful point here. He said the third is a captive, a what? A prisoner, asir. Most probably that prisoner was what? Fighting the Muslims. Most probably that prisoner was what? Was a non-Muslim. Imam Ali did not come out and say, Wallah, you are not Muslim, you are not Shia, I can't give you. No, doesn't matter to Amir al-Mu'mineen. He knew that person needed, he gave for the sake of Allah. The third and final point when it comes to the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. And this is a lesson for us, that we make sure this Muharram we do not leave empty-handed. The yatim, the miskin and the asir, they had some wisdom. They came knocking on the door of Ali and Fatima. Medina had a lot of companions. Why did these three come knocking on the door of Ali and Fatima? You know why? Because they know that the door of Ali and Fatima shall never turn you away. They know that if you go with a sincere heart to the door of Ali and Fatima, you will not leave empty-handed. Oh, Aba Abdullah, I have come to your door. I am full of sin. I say, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum, but I don't even deserve to say this. I say, Labbayka ya Hussain, but I'm not sure, Aba Abdullah, am I ready to sacrifice myself for you? Do not let me leave empty-handed, O Aba Abdullah. إني لم أخرج أشرا ولا بطرا ولا ظالما ولا مفسدا إنما خرج لطلب الإصلاح. Aba Abdullah's revolution was what? Islah fi ummati jaddi. Oh Aba Abdullah, I want reform in my life. Pick one action that you commit, one sin that you commit, that you have tried to stop, but you haven't managed to stop this sin. And ask Aba Abdullah, oh Aba Abdullah, I want to stop this sin. I want to reform within myself. That's when you can say, I'm a Hussaini. So the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam, they gave and they did not want anything in return. The second verse that speaks about orphans is in chapter 4, verse 10, in which an orphan's wealth is sacred. إن الذين يأكلون أموال اليتامى ظلما إنما يأكلون في بطونهم نارا. Indeed, those who take the property, the wealth of the orphans unjustly are only consuming fire in their bellies. Islam noticed that these orphans, their wealth, their property was taken. So Islam put a stop to this. The third verse that speaks about orphans is in Surah number 107, Surah Al-Ma'un. أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم. The story here is, and this is mentioned by Al-Qurtubi, who is a famous Ahlul Sunnah scholar. He mentions that Abu Sufyan would have this sunnah that he would pick one day of the week and he would give out wealth, food, property, wealth and food. So, as he was doing this big feast, an orphan came to take some food. Abu Sufyan pushed him away with force. You see the Arabic that is used here, yadu'ul yatim. The word that is used, he pushed him with some force. Have you seen the one who denies the religion? For that is the one who drives away the orphan. Instead of helping the vulnerable, the needy, the poor, they disregard their rights. And they want to what? They want to feed the wealthy. They're already wealthy. Even till today, sadly. You'll see certain feasts are done, massive feasts. But if someone who is from a poor background will not be invited there. So why are you doing this feast? Who is behind this wealth? Abu Sufyan's the same. He did it not for the sake of Allah. No, so he can be told that you are generous, Abu Sufyan. And today Abu Sufyan is a Muslim and Abu Talib is a kafir. How? Wal-iyadu billah. So this, and all scholars again, as I mentioned, the explanation of this verse is not from a Shia source. Mentioned that this verse was revealed about Abu Sufyan, the one who drives away an orphan. And there are some important points about orphans that we must know. Did you know about the tears of an orphan? In a hadith al-Qudsi, it is mentioned, إِذَا بَكَى الْيَتِيمِ سَقَطَتْ دَمْعَتُهُ بِيَدِ اللَّهِ. If an orphan cries, his tears drop in the hands of Allah. وقال الله عز وجل من أبكى هذا الذي حبست أباه في التراب. Who has made this child cry who's an orphan? من أسكنه وأرضاه أدخلته الجنة. Look at the powerful words used in this hadith. من أسكنه وأرضاه. I want Jannah. What do I need to do? Give sukoon and give rida to this orphan. What's sukoon? Tranquility. Remove his emptiness. This is the first meaning. The second meaning, provide him a home. Second, provide him shelter. Take him away from the streets. This is man askanahu. Wa ardah. Someone who makes that child, that orphan, happy because he has what? He has shed a tear. To make him satisfied. How do we do this? The sponsor of an orphan, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, held his two index fingers together and said, أنا وكافل اليتيم كهاتين في الجنة. Me and the sponsor of an orphan are like this in paradise. Have we deserved that to be close to Rasulullah? There's guidelines, there's terms of how to enter paradise. Have we followed them? Islam is not just talking. Islam is not just theoretical. Islam is action. And the first orphan in Islam was who? Was Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. He was born an orphan. And imagine he says, أنا وكافل اليتيم كهاتين بالجنة. Who sponsored Rasulullah? من كان كافل رسول الله. Who was the sponsor of Rasulullah? Who looked after Rasulullah? Who protected Rasulullah? Who put himself in line to protect Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam? Who made sure that his sons Talib, Aqil, Ja'far and Ali do not sleep protecting Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam? Abu Talib. Abu Talib is a mushrik and Abu Sufyan is a mu'min. What are your scales? Where are your scales? If Rasulullah is saying, أنا وكافل اليتيم كهاتين. He did not say, أنا والمسلم كافل اليتيم. No, no, no. أنا وكافل اليتيم كهاتين. And the sponsor of Rasulullah, of course, was who? Was Abu Talib. Yet, of course, we know the reason why there's an attack on Abu Talib. Because of Ali and because of Ali's suit. The Ahlulbayt and the orphans. Imam Ali alayhi salam was known as who? as the father of the orphans. In one occasion, he sees a woman with her children. He realizes that she is a widow and the children are orphans. He asks her, "Where is the man of your house? Where is your husband?" She tells him, "Amir al-Mu'mineen killed him." She does not know that it's Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali tells her, "Can I help you?" He takes her shopping, he goes inside her house. He tells her, "Oh woman, would you prefer to bake the food, make the food, or would you prefer to tidy up the house, clean the house? Which one would you do?" She said, "I'll clean the house." He said, Imam Ali said, "I will clean, I will bake the food, I will get the food ready." As Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib turns the fire on, the wood on, to make the food, he places his face near the fire and he speaks to himself, his soul. He tells himself, "Oh Ali, feel the heat of this fire in this world first." We're talking about a ma'soom here, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Asadullah al-Ghalib. We're not talking about a normal person. And then after he finishes making the food, he goes and starts playing with the children. And in his will, Allah fil aytam. Part of his will was what? The orphans. When we look at the life of Imam al-Hasan salamullah, I'm just giving small examples, by the way. Imam al-Hasan salamullah alayhi, one of the terms of the treaty with Muawiyah was what? Was, "Oh Muawiyah, make sure you pay the orphans and the widows that were killed in the battles of Siffin and Jamal." That's one of the terms. Give them blood money, look after them, make sure they're not going out on the streets begging. Make sure they are not poor. Of course, Muawiyah did not do this, but you think Imam al-Hasan and Imam al-Hussain allowed this? They paid out from their own pockets to those orphans and those widows. And of course, if we look at the life of Imam al-Sajjad, salamullahi alayhi, the life of the other Imams, we notice that they would take special care when it comes to the orphans. There's a famous hadith that says, إِذَا بَكَى الْيَتِيمِ اهْتَزَّ لَهُ الْعَرْشِ. If an orphan cries, the throne of Allah starts to shake for him. What is our duty? Now that we know Islam gives the position of an orphan utmost important, what is my position? We must follow the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. We're sadly good at talking, but not good at following. We're sadly good at attending majalis and remembering the fada'il, the merits, the benefits of the Ahlulbayt, but there is sadly no action. Prophets always were mentioned in the Quran with their children. All prophets are mentioned. Adam, Noah. There's always a story with a prophet with his son. That relationship of a father and a son, or a father and a daughter, is very important. Therefore, if you have orphans in a community, it's very difficult to build a strong community where there are not enough fathers. If you build a house and the foundation of the house is not strong enough, you can demolish the house and rebuild it if you have the money. It's not a big problem. Bunch of bricks. But if you build a person's character in an environment that he has been turned away by the community, an environment that he has faced psychological challenges and issues that have affected his mental well-being, when he grows up, it's too late for you to change anything. Follow the Ahlulbayt by supporting charities. One of the main charities is the charity of Al-Ain, which is supported and backed by Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Ali As-Sistani. Not only do they sponsor orphans, but they empower them. Because children in Iraq are affected and are suffering from the impact of war, violence, poverty. Therefore, they are facing many challenges. Sometimes it's not just the money and the wealth that you can give them. Man askanahu wa ardah. Not just man askanahu, not just one whoever gives him money and that's it. The hadith says, man askanahu wa ardah. Because every child deserves to have all their needs taken care of. He deserves to be happy, he deserves to have toys. That's why Al-Ain does not only say we sponsor with money, no. It empowers the child. Therefore, the dignity of an orphan is very important. This must be preserved. That's why I remember I was involved with Al-Ain. When we went to film the children, we were told that do not film the children in a way that they may lose face. They look undignified. That's why now when you look at all of the advertisements of Al-Ain, they show the children or the widows with dignity. They're either good jobs, they've just graduated from college or from university. They show them that they have some dignity, because this will have what? If you show a child, sadly some adverts you'll see, they'll show a child, he's not in the best of state, he looks really poor. That is an undignified way. Islam says no, make sure you give each person their dignity. But is that enough? Bas, I send a direct debit to Al-Ain? No, we must do more, because on the day of judgment we will be questioned. As I started the lecture, each child, each orphan, you should not look at a child back home in Iraq or Afghanistan or Yemen. You should look at him as your own child. Those that have children would understand this. Therefore, see every orphan as your own child. Because when we go and turn towards the school of Karbala, we see there are many orphans in Karbala. Abu Abdullah Al-Hussain Salamullahi alayhi took all his family and children to Karbala. And when Salama asked him, Abu Abdullah, I know that you are going towards your martyrdom. Rasulullah has informed me. But why take all the children and the women? Abu Abdullah Salamullahi alayhi responds by saying, Sha Allah Azza wa Jal an yara harami musharradeen wa atfali madbuhin muqayyadeen wa hum yastaghithun fala yajiduna nasara. It's the will of Allah that my women are taken as captives. It's the will of Allah that they are taken as prisoners. وَأَطْفَالِ مَذْبُوحِينَ. Some of my children will be killed in Karbala. مُقَيَّدِينَ وَهُمْ يَسْتَغِيثُونَ. And they want help. But they do not find any aid or any support. Abu Abdullah Al-Hussain Salamullahi alayhi took all his children and all his women. As we mentioned yesterday, many reasons were given why he did this. Some historians say that at least 17 children were killed on the day of Ashura. Some were killed after the actual killing of Abu Abdullah Al-Hussain, trampled by the hooves of the horses while they were running away. Some were even burnt alive as they were running away from the tents. They were burnt alive. There's a young boy, actually. When you look at the maqatil, there's a young man that on the day of Ashura, he comes forward. As he has his sword, the sword is dragging on the sands of Karbala. He's a young man. In the maqatil, no name is given. Those that have read the maqtal, he's called Ghulam, young boy. No name. Abu Abdullah sees him coming towards him. He was around 11 years old. He asks Abu Abdullah, can I get permission to fight? Imam al-Hussein looks at his companions. He says, this young boy, his father, did not just die, did not just achieve martyrdom a few moments ago. They said, yes, Abu Abdullah. He said, send him back to his mom. Send him back to his mother. We can't upset his mother by making her mourn for her husband and her son. They tell him, go back to your mother. He says to Aba Abdullah, it was my mother that sent me, Aba Abdullah. You know, usually I say his name is not mentioned. Why? Because usually when these men would go out on the day of Ashura to fight, they would introduce themselves. أنا زهير بن القيني. أنا حبيب بن مظاهر. أنا علي بن الحسين بن علي. They would introduce themselves. This young boy came out. He said, أميري حسين ونعم الأمير. This is how he introduced himself. He said, my prince, my leader is Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. So today there's no name for him. 11 years old, he achieved martyrdom. One of those children. And then you have the orphans. How did Aba Abdullah salamullahi alayhi deal with the orphans on the day of Ashura? The orphans of Karbala were many. Of course, all the children after the actual battle became orphans except one, if I'm not mistaken. Imam al-Baqir salamullahi alayhi. All other children were orphans on the day of Ashura. Every child that was present was an orphan, except Imam al-Baqir salamullahi alayhi. His father, Imam al-Sajjad, was alive. Yet we have the orphan Hamida, the daughter of Muslim ibn Aqil. Today is dedicated to Fatima al-Alila, but I want to look at a few of these orphans. Hamida is the daughter of Muslim ibn Aqil, as we mentioned, in an area known as Zubala. Imam al-Hussein salamullahi alayhi receives the news of the martyrdom of Muslim. He says, call me Hamida. He calls Hamida. He tells Hamida, sit in my lap. She sits in his lap. He starts to rub his hand on top of her head. There's a young daughter of Aba Abdullah, aged 3 or 4. She sees this. She notices her father is doing something to Hamida, patting her head. Then she asks, why is he doing this? On the day of Ashura, Aba Abdullah calls this young girl. Her name is Ruqayya. He calls Ruqayya. Ruqayya tells him, father, sit down. Aba Abdullah salamullahi alayhi sits down on the plains of Karbala. Ruqayya sits in his lap. Then Ruqayya says, father, do to me what you did to Hamida. La hawla wa la quwwata. May Allah not deprive you from seeing your daughter upset. May Allah not deprive you from seeing the tears of your daughters. It's the most difficult thing to see is your daughter upset. You know, if those of you that have daughters in school, if something happens to your daughter, if someone pushes her, what does she tell her? She says, when I go home, I'm going to tell Baba. I'm going to tell Baba. I'm going to tell Baba, you pushed me. You hurt my arms. That's what she says in school. You know, Ruqayya on the way to Sham, every time someone would push her, she would say, I'm going to tell my father Hussein that you pushed me. I'm going to tell my father Hussein that you hit me. I'm going to tell my father Hussein that you pulled my earrings. I'm going to tell my father Hussein that you whipped me with chains. That's one orphan. Then there's another orphan in Medina. See, sometimes it's difficult to see your loved ones hurt or upset. But sometimes it's even more difficult not knowing what's going on. You're left in the dark. That's even more difficult. Especially if you have a loved one, if they're in hospital, if they're sick. You want to be next to them. You want to make sure, you want to know what's going on. You'll call the hospital, call whoever's there to find out is the person well or not. It's better than being left in the dark when you don't know what's happening. There was a daughter by the name of Fatima. In the month of Rajab, when Aba Abdullah al-Hussein decided to leave for Mecca, he asked Aba al-Fadhil Abbas, oh Abbas, my beloved brother, prepare the women and tell them that we will be departing tomorrow. This young Fatima, she was feeling sick. She could not travel. She would come to her Uncle Abbas, begging him, Uncle Abbas, take me with you. On the day of the 28th of Rajab, when Aba Abdullah al-Hussein decided to leave Medina, Fatima al-Alila came running out the house. Father, take me with you. Father, do not leave me here. I will be in pain. Father, my name is Fatima. You used to tell me that my name reminds you of my mother Fatima, of your beloved mother Fatima al-Zahra. Fatima al-Alila would be waiting in Medina, waiting for any traveler to come with any letter, with any news of her father, Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Every night she would dream about her father. It is mentioned by some poets that on the day of Ashura, she woke up screaming, Wa Abata, Wa Hussaina. She woke up, she got out of her room, she ran into the room of Salama. Salama was looking after Fatima al-Alila. She found Salama holding the dust of Karbala. It had turned into red blood. She would know that it was the blood of her father, Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. This Fatima al-Alila had a special connection with Ruqayya. Let me take you to when the camp of Aba Abdullah returned to Medina. When her auntie Zainab returned, she would look for Ruqayya. It's as if she would say, where is my beloved Ruqayya? Where is my sister Ruqayya?
Without you I can't breathe. Take me with you. Take me with you. Take me with you. Take me with you. How can you leave me here all on my own? Tears on my cheek, tears on my cheek. How will I live this life when you're all gone? Father, tell me, what do I need to do to be with you? Without you I can't breathe. Take me with you. Take me with you. The reply from her father Imam al-Hussein saying, daughter, I can't. Daughter, I can't listen to your father. Please, just be good. Don't make this hard. Don't make this hard. I'm just protecting you, just like I should. Daughter, tell me, when we're in Karbala, what will you do? From home you'll be so far. daughter, tell me, daughter, tell me. She then again responds by saying, why did you leave? Why did you leave? Darkness consumes my heart. I feel so weak. I'm all alone. I'm all alone. No one to wipe my tears. I need you here. Father, I swear, words can't describe my pain and all my fear. I pray to see you again. Why did you leave, Father? I swear, words can't describe my pain and all my fears. I pray to see you again. Why did you leave? Why did you leave? I sit here crying alone. My Father, where have you gone? I feel so weak and depressed. I sit alone in sadness. I sit here crying alone. My Father, where have you gone? I feel so weak and depressed. I sit alone in sadness. I wish to feel your embrace. I wish to feel your embrace, to see the smile on your face. I look for you when I wake, but all I find is heartbreak. My heart's gone cold, I've lost all faith. My heart's gone cold, I've lost all feeling. I look for you when I wake, but all I find is heartbreak. My heart's gone cold, I've lost all feeling. No one to hold, I need your healing. I need you near to dry my tears. It's your daughter, why did you leave? علي لو ذاب دلالي خلص بالآه والونة. أبوي حسين فارقني خبر لليوم ما منه. علي لو ذاب دلالي خلص بالآه والونة. أبوي حسين فارقني خبر لليوم ما منه. أخذوا أياي كل أهلي انقطع رجواي والظن. أريد وياك تاخذني يا ريح الهاب وتعنى على النسمات. يا ريح خليني واشوف وين وياي دليني على النسمات. يا ريح خليني واشوفا وين وياي دليني ضع عنهم شال وانا بهالحال ضع عنهم شال وانا بهالحال ازور احباب وياك وديني ازور احباب. Why did you leave me? I need your love in my life. I need your love in my life. I need to know you're alive. I miss your presence near me, the way that things used to be. I want your warmth by my side. Now that all my tears have dried, I yearn to be on your chest. When I had you, I felt blessed. When I had you, I felt blessed. I need you near. I need you near. I need you near to ease my fear. I need you near to ease my fear. It's your daughter. Why did you leave me? It's your daughter. Why did you leave me? يا ريح الهاب احكي لك وانا الحسبات تشغلني نذر انطيك كل عمري لو اني وياك تحملني لو اني وياك تحملني اسوم عليك بارينا ضعن وياه يوصلني وابوي حسين لو شفته يا ريح الهاب نزلني يا ريح الهاب نزلني تراني الضيم والبين عاميني من الحسبات مليت تدريني شي ظل عالبال وانا بهالحال شي ظل عالبال وانا بهالحال ازور احباب. Why did you leave me? I see your things in our house. I see your things in our house. Reminds me of how it was. I look around for you. I look for you all around, but only darkness I found. I miss the way that you smell. On why you left me I dwell. I sleep and dream of your face. I am alone in this place. I miss the way that you smell. On why you left I will dwell. I sleep and dream of your face. I am alone in this place. You were my soul. I feel like dying. I've lost my all. I can't stop crying. I need you near to ease my fear. I need you near. Alone I'm here. It's your daughter. Why did you leave me? It's your daughter. Why did you leave me? السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبي الفضل العباس وأخته زينب جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات، رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.